No way, dude. Things never change. Guys, this is in 2014, okay? Just so you understand. Oh, my Lord. This is in 2014, okay? Holy moly.
We went from war to...
Joe Rogan hits back after criticism from The View, Dragon Believer. Okay, let's get to some real news. Jesus Christ. No wonder people don't want to watch liberal media, man. This sucks. I mean, everything sucks for the most part. And the coverage is not great, okay? Elon and Trump are definitely doing it together. You think they're having gay sex?
Right. Basically, to this guy, Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. I checked it. He believes in dragons? He believes in dragons.
Did you triple source that?
Yes, I did. And he also thinks that dragons, I guess like dinosaur-y type of animals, roamed the earth when people did.
Rogan really leaning into this one by changing his ex-bio to, quote, dragon believer. Joe Concha is a Fox News contributor, and he joins us now. Joe, this is so up Joe Rogan's alley in terms of what he finds funny. To, first of all, be called a dragon believer, and also to be accused of being an unreliable source of information by the ladies of The View. So what is your reaction to all of this?
Oh, yes, Carly. We should absolutely trust The View and not the guy.
I mean, okay, you guys want to understand something? This is the reason why Fox News' ratings are infinitely better than the liberal media ratings, okay? Here's why. Because they're both talking about nonsense, okay? But at least this is entertaining nonsense. Do you see what I mean? The nonsense that we just watched on CNN is like the minor differences between Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, and how we should take these guys seriously, and how they're going to, I don't know, possibly improve the federal government or maybe ruin it. Whereas these guys are just like, Joe Rogan, look at these dumbasses who say Joe Rogan believes in dragons. He only believes in dragons a little bit.
Guy who revolutionized the world with electric cars, SpaceX. I could go on with the accomplishments of Elon Musk. I have a question. Do stupid people get to a point in life where they realize that they're, stupid? Because this is what panic sounds like in legacy media. I've said this before in this program. It's worth repeating again because it's so disturbing. The View is under the ABC News umbrella. ABC News is run by a woman named Dana Walden. Dana Walden is Kamala Harris's very best friend. They lived right near each other in Brentwood, California when she was a senator there. Dana Walden set up Kamala Harris on a blind date with Doug Emhoff, who she obviously is now married to. And now this is what the result is of Dana Walden running ABC News. You have people like Joy Behar and Whoopi Goldberg under the ABC News umbrella losing their mind.
I need to actually dive deeper into this Joe Rogan dragon. We're in hell. We might as well enjoy it. Does anybody have the clip? Where did this Joe Rogan dragon stuff come from? Where is it coming from? Yahoo.com is the only article that's readily available for this important piece of news. Joe Rogan ups the ante with his View feud with evidence that dragons existed. That's not a sentence that makes much of... Joe Rogan is doubling down on his... Okay, this is from his podcast. Okay, let's start here first.
So
were dragons real animals?
You like these kind of far out there ideas. How do you like this idea? There's a group of people that say that dragons were real, and I'll explain.
Ooh.
So around the same time period, so to speak, and I'm not one of these people, so I'm probably going to get the details wrong
like
a little
Matthew
bit.
McConaughey movie right now.
Yeah, seriously. But so around the same time period in China.
I think he's trolling, right? Evidence dragons were real, full documentary. Like, I don't think he actually thinks dragons are real.
South America, Africa, all these different Rome, all these places, images depicted people fighting dragons, right? And every dragon was slightly different, but it was all a giant, scaly animal that could fly. So when you break that down, you think about the fact that large birds had a hard time being fossilized because their bones are so porous, right? So because they have like hollowish bones, they break down very easily and they don't fossilize.
Wait, this clip is literally from 2019. I was gonna say Joe Rogan talking about like whether or not dragons are real or not doesn't seem like new Joe Rogan. It seems like good Joe Rogan, old Joe Rogan, which is why I was a little confused. And when you scroll down, you realize, oh no, this is like, it's not the best Joe Rogan, because the best Joe Rogan is like 2016 era, I think, before Milo Yiannopoulos. Pre-Milo Joe Rogan, like white supremacists are always going to be able to, white supremacists always have an opportunity to come and speak to millions of people on my podcast, Joe Rogan. But this is definitely an older version of Joe Rogan. That was still kind of, fun.
So the group that says this, basically they're saying the evidence is the reason there's no fossils of dragons is because they had bird bones and they were actually very delicate animals. But a handful of these small population of these giant flying lizards existed and basically encompassed all these different countries where they all depicted fighting dragons in their own way, and they were all killed off by knights or whatever it is, and then
the person who's describing to him the dragon stuff is also not a believer or a committed believer to the dragon theory. What is this? Do you think he'll ever acknowledge you? How hard would you have to insult him? No. Joe Rogan will never acknowledge me because I have insulted him far too much. But I think this is like this is the exact type of conversation Joe Rogan used to have that wasn't like damaging or dangerous at all. It was just like fun conspiracies that we all like to entertain. Okay? Every now and then. I've done it too. I've done the Mud Fossil University shit. I've like sarcastically aligned myself with this notion, if you recall. Like, this isn't, I think this type of shit is fun and totally acceptable. Like, oh yeah, maybe dragons were real versus there's a cabal of pedophilic Jews that control the media and are also simultaneously beaming pornography into your brains and also doing unlimited amounts of third world immigration into the country. Okay? Like, that is not so fun. That type of conspiratorial thinking is fascist and not good. And I feel like we moved on from the haha funny, cute, who knows, maybe dragons did exist. Imagine a world where they did type of conspiracy theories to the second type.
Didn't fossilize.
What?
So it's like the science is saying that if there were lizards big enough to fly around and eat people, they didn't have bones that could fossilize.
So it'd be like an eagle.
Right. And that's why all these human populations around the world have depictions of them, because they did actually exist.
Now, are there any stories of dragons like written like in the times of people that they actually had the written word, or is it just depictions?
I don't know. Not my field.
That would be interesting because like are these depictions like ancient accounts told by generation after generation, like passed down?
I think so. I don't know. I don't know anything about dragons or whether it's real, but I think it's interesting to think, oh, well, the science supports that if there were flying lizards, their bones wouldn't have fossilized, and these have been passed down, stories that have...
So what about like pterodactyls? Like what? How the f do they exist then? What? They did. There were flying... Wait, why is that different? Those are flying reptiles? Bro, he just said flying lizards. How is that any different? I mean, he's not even arguing for this. He's not arguing for this position. He very clearly said he doesn't believe this, but he thinks it's like a fun, cool conspiracy. Also, what's hilarious about this is that like the current existing birds are the closest, I think, genetically to dinosaurs. So I don't really understand where we're going with that one. You're out of your depth on this, bro. Yeah. Relevant Peterson clip trying to convince Dawkins on the biological. Oh, yeah. So Alex O'Connor, I saw a bunch of clips from this. And well, first of all, this is a let them fight situation because I don't like Richard Dawkins. And I like Jordan Peterson even less. But on this issue, like I am offering critical support to Richard Dawkins, even though he is the most annoying type of like r/Reddit atheist who has even in recent years said he's culturally Christian. Okay. Unc Cook, not gonna lie. Joy Behar says Joe Rogan believes in dragons and that's why he's not reliable, whereas The View is very reliable. They thought Biden was young and dynamic, had no problems. Okay, he did cook. I mean, he did cook on this. He's absolutely correct on this. Dinosaurs are also reptiles. Hasanabi. Pteranodons are another kind of reptile completely different from dinosaurs and not dinos. I'm an unemployed paleontologist. Please, this is the only thing I'm good for. This is semantics, but birds aren't just the closest thing to dinosaurs we have. They literally are dinosaurs. They're the dinosaurs that survived. Yeah, that's what I thought too. The Adam King Show. Why couldn't you speak prior to the election results? Why now do you defend what you clearly felt for a long time? This right here is the perfect demonstration of how right-wing mania works, by the way. Shaky Gurga, Chunk Weigert, okay, my uncle, was a very prominent critic of Joe Biden. Okay? Myself and Cenk and many other commentators on the leftist sphere to the liberal sphere in independent media routinely yelled about Joe Biden being 800 years old. But this guy is fantasizing about a position that Cenk never actually held. Now, all evidence points to the exact contrary of this. And yet that hasn't stopped 700 people from liking this because nobody cares about the truth. He literally ran for office so that he could get others to realize that Joe Biden is too old and maybe give them the courage to run within the Democratic Party, knowing full well that it was a, constitutional battle that he would not win anyway because he's not born in the United States. I said Biden was too old. I started a petition to get him out of the race 14 months ago and even ran against him in the primary. I'm pretty sure I did all I could. Yeah. And that's what's crazy. These people do not care. People are doubling down. What primary? Are we pretending we had one now? This might be the biggest own I've ever seen for those in election cope. Wait, everyone's favorite Hebrew, Jew haters beware, found at Infowars ban.video, DM for media inquiries. This guy's an Infowars guy? Oh, I hate it, man. I hate it so much. People are just like arguing against the truth and they don't give a narrative is significantly more important than the truth, okay?
As the dragon fight to
well,
fighting,
how many dragons have
Satan.
you overcome in your life?
I'm not interested in dragons. I'm interested in reality.
Okay, so I read a book a while back that described the biological reality of the dragon. Say, well, there's no such thing as a dragon. It's like, okay, is there such a thing as a predator?
Of course.
Well, that's a meta category. What's the category of predator? Bear, eagle, if you're a primate. Fire? Is fire a predator?
No.
Well, it's complicated because a fire kills you. So is there a worse predator than serpentine, flying, fire-breathing reptile? Is that not the imagistic equivalent of predator? If predator is real, in what way isn't dragon real?
So a dragon is a pictorial representation of the abstracted concept of a predator.
Yes.
But when you say the
Dude, this is such a funny... I'm sorry. God, the debate space is such a joke, dude. It's like... This reads as a parody, and they are not parodying like the worst aspects of debate culture. They are unironically engaging in this like hyper intellectualized, very sincere argument about whether or not Jordan Peterson literally believes dragons exist, or if he's actually simply saying that the dragon is a representation of the apex predator. I just don't like, how can you sit down with Jordan Peterson and have a sincere conversation like this? It just doesn't make sense. It doesn't.
biology of a dragon, you must understand how that can be misleading.
I don't think the category of dragon is any less valid than the category of lion.
Any less biological?
Well, it depends on your level of analysis.
I'm embarrassed to admit that I watched all of this and it's pretty much all the way through. Yeah, no, I saw clips of this and I thought it was really funny. I derive entertainment from this conversation that Alex Cooper presented, okay? But not in a way, not in the way that other people, I think, understood it, okay? Oh, this is a direct convo that he had with Jordan B. Peterson. Hold on. Yahweh is acting like a tribal war god. God is a delusion. Oxford Union speech. Ben Shapiro versus Alex O'Connor. Is religion good for society? Debate theism versus, oh God, pops off, by the way. This bangs on TikTok, I think. And it certainly bangs on YouTube as well. I don't know. It is so outside of my field of interest. I don't know how else to describe it. What is this? That's your problem. Dawkins versus Peterson. Okay, here, let's
Richard
look
asked you before about the difference between a story or an idea naturally evolving over the course of numerous manuscripts and throughout human history, and the idea of it being divinely inspired. And
You've never had a teenage existential crisis? You know this shit goes hard if you're stupid. I think this is like one step above like truly stupid guys, okay? I think like this is a stupid guy who's at least on a journey to not be as stupid, but thinks instead of reading books, you watch this video and your takeaway is that you're smarter for it, if that makes sense. Alex O'Connor and Hasanabi is not a crossover I expected. I should reach out to him when I'm in Oxford, when I'm in London, when I'm in England. If he's out there, I don't know, and do a sit down. Alex O'Connor's a smart man. I'm biased because I'm a Brit too, but he's all we have in this space. I don't hate him. I think he is. I mean, there's definitely a lot more. I have a long list of British people that I admire before we get to someone like him. I don't know the full scope of his commentary, but having said that, he does give off, and maybe I'm totally off base with this, but he does give off r/atheism vibes. My opinion on religion is pretty well known at this point. I hope that you guys understand it. It's just like live and let live. People believe a whole bunch of hokum that I don't believe in, and I don't fault them for it as long as it's like offering some level of guidance in their lives. But most importantly, as long as they don't use that to manipulate other people's existence and use that to harm other people. That's it. Does that make sense? Like, I don't care. I'm not invested in like trying to atheist pill you at all. Does that make sense? Pretty sure his education is in theology. I think isn't he philosophy? He's a philosophy nerd, isn't he? He is nuanced on the theism now. He studied theology. I thought he was a philosophy guy. Why are you going to Oxford, England? Why are you going to Oxford? Don't worry about it. He has degrees in philosophy and theology. Oh, okay. That makes sense. Would you ever get a massage from a man? Yeah. I need powerful hands to rub this body up and down.
And you were seeming to imply that these are almost interchangeable concepts.
Isn't the problem that people dismiss science because of religion? Isn't this the biggest issue we have? So many people ignoring reality like climate change. I mean, I think that reactionary tendency doesn't specifically come from, doesn't exclusively come from religion. There are plenty of non-religious people that also are, climate deniers, climate change deniers. Like hyper focusing on religion. I think in this instance is just like,
concepts. Now, if that's the case, when you say that this divine spirit behind the Bible is actually just the way that it has evolved throughout the human history, throughout the different manuscripts that we've had, then saying that that is what divinity is, I think for you may drag the mundane up into the realm of divinity. Mm-hmm. But I think for people like Richard and for many people listening, what it doesn't said is drags the divine down to the realm of the mundane.
Very well put, yes.
Well, I don't know why it would drag the divine down into the realm of the mundane if we're speaking of something like the straight and narrow path of harmony between multiple modes of being. I don't think it doesn't make any difference to me whether it's the material reaching upward or the divine descending downward. I don't think there's any difference between those two things.
You don't. That's exactly right. That's the problem.
Well, I don't.
You don't see the difference.
Like, this is nerd on nerd violence, dude. This is nerd on nerd violence. This is a crime. Okay, I'm all in favor of shitting on Jordan Peterson, though.
Difference. Well, look at it this way. So, for example, in this conversation, you know this to be the case. Like, there's various ways that this conversation could go sideways, right? Seriously, like either of us could try to win. Either of us could try to demonstrate our intellectual superiority, right? Each of us could misrepresent the other. Or we could both try, and I do think we are, in fact, trying that, and I think Alex is helping.
Hopefully they united on their hatred for Islamo-leftism at the end of this process. You know what I mean? Real bipartisanship and compromise was found on this day. I hope.
Along with that, just fine. We could try to follow the thread of the exploratory truth and see if we could get somewhere. Now, I don't think there is any difference between that, by the way, and what's expressed in the biblical texts as the spirit of the Logos. That's why we have dialogue.
I'm very interested in the possibility that truths emerge through evolving manuscripts. Now, that's a very interesting idea, and it's totally different from divine inspiration. And I want to pursue it because I don't believe in divine inspiration, but I would be prepared to believe in evolving manuscripts.
Well, I would say
Yes, the big issue is when atheists misattribute all of the world's problems to religion. It's an idealist view. When the materialist worldview, religion is a simple tool used by both the oppressors and the oppressed for various reasons. Exactly. Religion is a tool. And the greatest example of this is Christianity being used to both uplift and defend the white supremacist construct of chattel slavery, and also Christianity being used as a guiding principle in liberation theology that played a formative role in the abolition of slavery. I just don't I like it if it's being used as a galvanizing factor for good causes, such as the abolition of slavery. I don't like it when it's used as a reason to uphold unjustifiable constructs that are inhumane, like chattel slavery. That's it. This is my major. I think this is what separates me from all the r/atheism people, is that they're like, no, you don't understand. Like, it's just religion. It's only religion. It's the religion. And also we should actively try to convert religious people to be atheists. Oh, my logic. Oh, my science. Instead of saying God bless you after you sneeze, I say science bless you, sir. It may not be a problem in California. As someone in Oklahoma, the religion is the problem. Yeah, totally. You're right.
this is why I had set forward the possibility.
The irony, of course, I think, with people that say, no, it's just religion that is the problem, is that you're doing the same thing that the dumbasses are doing on the other side. Okay. Right-wing Christians look at that and go, no, religion is the solution. And you hyper focus on religion. It's not religion. Okay. It's capitalism. One example I can give you is that while the underlying material realities have gotten worse in comparison to like, where they could be, especially when you look at the wealth disparity in this country and the gap widening. Religion, on the other hand, religiosity in America has gone down. It's actually gone down so consistently. Atheists, in spite of their annoying attitude, are winning this battle. But they're not necessarily winning this battle because they're making convincing arguments. Okay? That's because of Bill Maher's hit movie. Yeah. Atheists and agnostics are winning the battle. And I think it's because religion plays a formative role in uncovering certain truths about nature that science is at this stage incapable of addressing. And as science ends up figuring out certain truths to the best of its ability, then there's less space for religion in that process. This is why I think a lot of religious people happen to be anti-science. What? That has been debunked? What do you mean? Get debunked on, Unc. Militant atheism is teenage shit? Yeah, I mean, I was definitely way more of a r/atheism type of guy when I was much, much younger back in the day. Like, I still recall trying to debate my religion teacher in 3rd grade in Turkey on why our religion class wasn't teaching any other religions and only teaching Islam, and even going so far as to fail said class because on the tests I would draw a mosque rather than answer any of the religion questions. That's how much of an annoying little I was. Yüzünü bayağı erkenmiş, evet. All the way up until high school. I think that was literally the first, I'm packing on a bunch of different experiences that I had throughout my development. It's not just all from 3rd grade. It's just, that's the first thing I remember from my childhood, being an angry baby and thinking, ooh, I'll be super cool and stand up against my teacher. I think it's also because he had vibes, you know what I mean? Y'all don't know about r/atheism in Turkey, okay? Turkish people, holy I'm willing to bet that a big chunk of the reason as to why so many people are not as religious any longer is because of how fucking annoying people who teach religion are when they're growing up. That's why so many Catholics since birth are just like totally out of the religion. And that's probably why so many adult reverts and adult converts have deep levels of zealotry and fundamentalism. J.D. Vance, Michael Pence are two that immediately come to mind. That's why it's so funny to see a adult convert of Catholicism. When you're a kid, you're like, this shit's boring, bro. I don't care about this. Like, I want to go play basketball outside or some shit. You know what I mean? Why the f do I have to sit through this? My time could be best served watching anime, please. You know, I dislike militant atheists almost as much as the hyper religious. Yeah, militant atheists are so goddamn annoying. I'm sorry.
Of taking a look, particularly at Mircea Eliade, because that's where you'd find the best work. He's brilliant. The history of, I believe that if you studied the history of religious ideas, it's a 3-volume manuscript, or The Sacred and the Profane, which is probably his single best work, that you'd see profound analogies between the manner in which you've been construing the world by.
Y'all just hate evangelicals? What do you mean? Oh, okay, listen. Chatters. Militant atheists are really annoying, and Richard Dawkins is like the perfect reason why I despise militant atheists. Because militant atheists also, in their idealistic liberal notion of religion being the end all be all and the anti-religious movement being the solution to all of society's problems that they foresee, end up reinforcing a ton of white supremacist constructs, Islamophobia being the key thing. Okay? Dawkins is awesome. He's just saying the truth, not a militant. Am I crazy? Isn't Dawkins also, 1, a transphobe, and 2, recently admitted that he was culturally Catholic or some shit? He said he was like culturally Christian. Richard Dawkins, among many of these like new wave atheists, is like not exactly a good guy. He's a bit of a weirdo. Sam Harris is another one.
Biologically,
I would say he's not as big as a weirdo as this guy, but like I said, there's a lot of stuff that they agree on,
including the trains of thought that led you to the development of the idea of the meme. I really believe that.
Well, analogies is one thing, but is it the same thing?
Here it is.
So I was slightly horrified to hear that Ramadan is being promoted instead. I do think that we are culturally a Christian country. I call myself a cultural Christian. I'm not a believer, but there's a distinction between.
Yeah, I'm a cultural Muslim, okay? And there's never been a moment where I was like, wow, we got to stop with these church bells. You know what I'm saying? Whoa, what is this? What's up with this promotion of the church? The inconsistency in and of itself of like saying one type of religious cultural artifact is actually totally permissible and the other is actually wrong and bad, okay? In my opinion, that in and of itself is just another way to reinforce the exact same white supremacist constructs that Jordan Peterson is demonstrating, okay?
Being a believing Christian and being a cultural Christian. And so, I love hymns and Christmas carols, and I sort of feel at home in the Christian ethos. I feel that we are a Christian country in that sense. It's true that statistically the number of people who actually believe in Christianity is going down, and I'm happy with that, but I would not.
Chatter sent me this thinking it's Richard Dawkins. Dog, this is, I believe his name is Jared Taylor, okay? Understandable mistake from an anti-white racist, such as members of this community. But this person is an out and about white nationalist, okay?
I'd be happy if, for example, we lost all our cathedrals and our beautiful parish churches. So I count myself a cultural Christian. I think it wouldn't matter if we substituted any alternative religion. That would be truly dreadful.
Well, which brings me to my supplementary point, which is that, as we know, church attendance is plummeting, but the erection of mosques across Europe, I think 6,000 are under construction.
Wait, is this the guy who says Asians are smarter than whites? No, that's, I think, Sam Harris. You're once again mistaking your white r/atheist heroes with one another. I mean, he might have entertained the scientific racism as well, race realism, but Sam Harris was the one who entertained the race realist like the scientific basis for IQ and how it differs from race to race. You know, some real biological essentialism.
Construction, and there are many more, I mean, are being planned. So do you regard that as a problem? Do you think that matters?
Say what you will about Hitchens' disastrous Iraq war takes, but he was based regarding Palestine. Yeah, so many of these guys broke their brains after the war on terror. That's what it is. r/atheism, r/atheism guys just straight up had their brains completely broken, and not necessarily, some of which started under the George W. Bush admin, okay, but certainly under the Obama administration, where they they just became more and more insanely militant against any sort of invocation of Islam, any sort of imagery that depicts Muslims as like human beings. They went crazy over it.
Yes, I do really. I mean, I have to choose my words carefully.
During Bush, all atheists were basically like hardcore leftists and anarchists. Yes and no. That's why I always will have respect for Kyle Kulinski, because out of all of those, like, I'm a skeptic, I'm a skeptic thinker, I'm an anti-theist, I'm a Reddit atheist type of guys, he was the only one that was like, yo, we're really over Muslims a lot, and it's pretty crazy. Whereas the rest of that community had incredibly reactionary tendencies that basically made their hyper focus Islam and Islamic culture, or whatever they understood it as, Islamic culture. No interest in like trying to understand how reactionary fundamentalist sentiment can manifest in a region that is like completely dominated with war and destroyed. That's what's so frustrating about it. It's like, dude, people, if you bomb them, if you blow them up, if you kill them over and over again, yeah, they're going to be angry at you. And they're going to find themselves in the throes of reactionary thinking. And oftentimes that's going to play itself out in fundamentalist understandings of religion.
I mean, if I had to choose between Christianity and Islam, I choose Christianity every single time. I mean, it seems to me to be a fundamentally decent religion in a way that I think Islam is not.
I think you're going to have to explain why you say that, Professor Dawkins. Why is Islam fundamentally not decent like Christianity?
Yes, I mean, the way women are treated. I mean, Christianity is not great about that. It's had its problems with female vicars and female bishops and things. But there's an active hostility to women, which is promoted, I think, by the holy books of Islam. I'm not talking about individual Muslims.
Yeah. Christians, on the other hand, infinitely tolerant of women, you know? And again, all religion is beholden to interpretations, okay? Nobody follows religion to a T. And the people who claim to follow it down to the wire are actually fundamentalists. Okay? If you look at religion and then say like, oh, Muslims are just like inherently anti-women because of their religion, you are refusing to understand the reasons as to how the current Muslim world got to the position that they got to. You're also monolithizing billions of people,
who of course are quite different, but the doctrines of Islam, the Hadith and the Quran, is fundamentally hostile to women, hostile to gays, and I find that I like to live in a culturally Christian country, although I do not.
Well, he'd love America then, you know. That's right, baby. Culturally Christian. That's why our culturally Christians love electing like to want files in the cabinet and sex offenders, you know, after taking away women's bodily autonomy. Historically, Christianity has never been used to oppress gay people. This guy gets it. Yeah, Murad even chimed in from the other room. He's like, historically, Christians have been very kind to gay people. Are you saying that people in desperate and violent circumstances use sociological inventions to organize and mobilize? No way. You think Germans would invent a sort of scientific race theory as a pseudo-religion and do violence? I would never say that. I would say that the Germans stole our work in the United States of America in terms of the scientific racism that they abided by as a pseudo-religion. Remember, it still somehow always loops itself back around to, Yankee ingenuity. Yeah, some of these militant atheist types often fall into the awful take that Islam is inherently bad, but only because they have conflated Islamic beliefs and practices with a false and racist conception of Middle Eastern culture. To make a long story short, they speak only with ignorance and bigotry about Islam. Exactly. It's also Orientalism. A lot of people made hay about what I said about Hassan Nasrallah, the former general secretary of Hezbollah, the one that Israel assassinated, when I said famously that he was, like him, hate him, doesn't matter, a very well-read and brilliant man. Although I disagree with his worldview when it comes to like gay people and a whole bunch of other social issues, the reason why I mentioned that is because I was specifically talking about the optics, okay? A guy with a big beard, wearing traditional garb is not immediately traced as like an intelligent person by a lot of people on the West. They just automatically go, oh, that's like a mullah, And even mullahs, for that matter, can be. Okay. Now, of course, you can't have this kind of nuanced opinion. Okay. An academic discussion on Orientalism and how it reinforces racist perspectives in the Western world paired up with Western chauvinism in a cycle of justification. When people hear that, they just go, this guy said Hassan Nasrallah is smart. He's not smart. You don't understand. He's a big beard and stupid. Like, even if these people are your arch enemies, okay? Even if these people are your arch enemies, you have to understand them. You have to understand where they're coming from, okay? Yeah, people can separate Ben Carson being an incredible neurosurgeon, but an absolute dumbass on everything else, but struggle with anyone Arab or, God forbid, Muslim. Exactly. These are some of my, these are some of the things that I am annoyed by with the inherently reactionary attitude that a lot of militant atheists, yep, that's correct. Creane is 100% correct. People really do subscribe to the they hate us because they ain't a school of thought. Exactly. That school of thought is actually very welcoming, okay? They hate us because they ain't us is a school of thought that immediately allows you to go, you know what? I don't have to look further into this. These guys are barbaric and we have to defeat them. Look at my logs. Why? What did you say recently? You play this game, you're already a criminal. She kept herself pure for you. I like how you base level of judging someone starts with, I don't hate them, Keck W. Grandma, let's go. Crane, you're a freak. No, I know what he was referencing. You goddamn freak.
I'm not, put that away. I don't do recordings.
Okay. Do a quick question?
Yeah.
All right, you said you felt that the students protesting were driven by anti-Semitism?
Yes.
Do you feel it's possible they're driven by horror at the slaughter in Gaza?
Do what, sorry?
Do you think they're driven by horror at the slaughter in Gaza? Is it necessarily
respectable militant atheist defending defending the ethno-religious supremacist state of Israel doing a genocide by attacking its naysayers? Oh, my science.
Anti-Semitism?
Kind of feels like there is a higher order of priority here with hating Muslims, don't you think? This is inherently reactionary thinking. It is also inherently anti-science, okay? You're not logical. You are illogical. Do you understand? That's why Bill Maher, Sam Harris, this guy, and so many other militant atheists have fallen into this trap. Do you get it? Do you understand why I don't like the founding fathers of the militant r/atheist movement? It's just another way to be annoying and racist. It's like when liberals do the same old tropes that racist right-wingers engage in by saying black people have a real problem with homophobia in their community. Black men are violent. Black men are violent and angry all the time. You just wanted permission to say the same that right-wingers say openly. Okay? You just tried to find a way to do it in in a liberal capacity. Okay. Is there homophobia in the black community? Of course there is. Just like there's a ton of homophobia in the white community. Singling out black people like this is simply a way to offer yourself some kind of permission to be like, black people are just like reactionary. Okay. And a lot of people engage in this trapping without recognizing it. It's because on its face, it sounds logical, right? On its face, you're like, well, that sounds logical to me, you know, because it's true. It's correct. Yes, of course there's homophobia in the black community. Okay. Yeah, there is. Except singling out black people in this way is not only unfair, but also causes you to lose sight of how homophobia festers in every community. No, it doesn't sound logical. I mean, on its face, it does. You're just omitting key details. Does that make sense? It also comes with a generalization, right? One of the things that I always try to point people in the right direction on is monolithizing marginalized communities. Okay? Grand generalizations of marginalized communities hit way different than when you do it for the dominant in-group white people, okay? It has a different purpose and it has a different impact. This is very important to contend with, okay? If you turn around and say all people of insert marginalized background are this way, it's very different than saying all Christians are this way in certain instances, like in a place like the United States of America, where Christianity is the dominant force.
Of course they're not driven by the horror and the slaughtering. You mean...
Of the students protesting.
Well, are you recording this? I'm not, put that away. I don't do...
Put that away. Anyway, Hassan's mic is as, please. It's going in and out. Noise is getting... I don't think so. Reza Aslan, Bill Maher's not very sophisticated. Professor from UC Riverside.
I've been on the show a bunch of times. He's a comedian, but frankly, when it comes to the topic of religion, he's not very sophisticated in the way that he thinks. I mean, the argument about the female genital mutilation being an Islamic problem is a perfect example of that. It's not an Islamic problem, it's an African problem.
Well, wait. Because he says it's a, hold on a second, because he says it's a Muslim country problem. He says that in Somalia...
Yeah, but that's... Yeah.
Okay, I don't even agree with the way that's crazy. That was a wild thing to just... It's an African problem? That's... Okay, what? That's a wild way to reframe it. Goddamn, okay. She's like, listen...
Yeah, and that's actually empirically, factually incorrect. It's a Central African problem. Eritrea has almost 90% female genital mutilation. It's a Christian country. Ethiopia has 75% female genital mutilation. It's a Christian country. Nowhere else in the Muslim majority states is female genital mutilation an issue. But again, this is the problem.
What's the correct framing? He should have said it was most likely a regional issue that is born out of the instability in these countries. But I get what he was trying to say. Reza Aslan is an Iranian evangelical convert.
Is that you make these facile arguments like that women are somehow mistreated in the Muslim world. Well, that's certainly true in many Muslim majority countries like Iran and Saudi Arabia. Do you know that Muslims have elected 7 women as their heads of states in those Muslim majority countries? How many women do we have as head of states in the United States?
Reza, be honest, though, for the most part, it is not.
Dude, 2014, this shit was popping, dude. Yo, you could just... I was about to say, things have not changed at all, okay? I guess, like, the language around it has changed a little bit, but, like, dude, like, look at this. Like, anyone that tries to be like, listen, here's the actual truth of the matter. This has nothing to do with Islam. And also, interpretations of religion vary from country to country. And ultimately, you have to look at fundamentalism and not religion itself. You say like that in any part post 9/11, you say some like that ever after 9/11, and people should be like, shut the up. Why don't you go strap yourself with a TNT vest and blow yourself up, okay? Yeah, Mr. Allahu Akbar.
A free and open society for women in those states.
Well, it's not in Iran, it's not in Saudi Arabia, it certainly is in Indonesia and Malaysia, it certainly is in Bangladesh, it certainly is in Turkey. I mean, again, this is the problem, is that you're talking about a religion of 1.5 billion people, and certainly it becomes very easy to just simply paint them all with a single brush by saying, well, in Saudi Arabia they can't drive, and so therefore that's somehow representative of Islam. It's representative of Saudi Arabia.
But
in Iran,
I
they don't have...
I mean, I think that Bill Maher's
Have you even read Dawkins' books? You're just wrong. He didn't take his racist heel turn until the last few years, and you're right. He's not being rabid mask off about it, but there's so much subconscious bias going on. He's old, and it's whatever. We still respect his research and debunk fundamental creationists. Yeah, I think a lot of people get lost in the sauce of the old work that people have, and just don't understand that, like, people that might have had formative works that you appreciate could have turned reactionary later in their lives, or maybe they were always reactionary, but they just didn't, they didn't exhibit those tendencies as much in a way that tracks for you. Okay?
Somehow representative of Islam. It's representative of Saudi Arabia.
But hold
in
on,
Iran, they don't have...
I mean, I think that Bill Maher's point is that these aren't extremists. We often talk about extremists and that we should crack down on extremists. And why aren't Muslims speaking out about extremists? In Saudi Arabia, when women can't vote and they can't drive and they need permission from their husband, that's not extremists. Why aren't we talking more about what? That's not extremist, that's commonplace. Why don't we talk more about the commonplace wrongs that are happening in some of these countries?
It's extremist when compared to the rights and responsibilities of women, Muslim women around the world. It's an extremist way of dealing with it.
But it's not extremist in that. It's not extremist in that country in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, Sam Harris literally said TSA shouldn't waste their time on travelers from white countries and only inspect Muslims. That's what made me drift away from these grifters. Here's an old Hasanabi lore dump. Back when I was at the Young Turks, Sam Harris was at the Santa Monica Equinox. And I knew who he was because he had debated my uncle recently, but he didn't know who I was, obviously, because I was a up-and-comer at TYT. So I approached him and I was like, oh my God, you're Sam Harris. Big fan. I'm lying. And we had a very quick conversation about Islam at the Santa Monica Equinox that we were both working out at. Okay, quick lore dump. And in which I asked him about, like, why he places the emphasis on Islamic terror at a time when, 90 or not 95, I think at the time it was 75% of domestic terror incidents that take place on U.S. soil were actually white nationalist, far-right, anti-government extremists. Okay? I said this directly to him. I was like, the data, it shows that 75% of domestic terror incidents on U.S. soil have happened, since 9/11, have happened in the hands of white supremacists, far-right, anti-government extremists. And to which he literally turned around and said, look behind you, there's the Santa Monica Pier. Okay? If that exploded right now, who would you think was responsible? Would you think, Mormon extremists would be responsible for that? Or would you think Muslim extremists would be responsible for that? And I was shocked at, like, how non-data driven his attitude was on this, in this conversation. Straight up. And for the record, he has personally brought that forward as a epic own many times in public as well.
Arabia, that's the norm.
Oh, no, it's not. I mean, look, Saudi Arabia.
No, my response was like, I would not make an inference that it's Muslim or Mormon until there was more evidence presented. Why did Sam Harris feel comfortable making this as an argument? And he has actually made this as an argument since then, right? Since that private conversation. Why? It's because when the overwhelming majority kind of agree with that statement due to the societal attitudes towards Islam as being like a singularly dangerous ideology that creates terrorists, okay, then you can get away with that sort of irrational thinking because ultimately that's just you being biased, right? That's just simply put, you being a biased person. And yet it does not matter because if enough people agree with that bias and they take that bias as though it is the truth, then it doesn't matter if you're saying something that is completely illogical. Okay? We feel comfortable saying school shooters are white people. No. Brother, did you not hear the first part of this conversation where I told Sam Harris that the overwhelming majority, 75% of domestic terror incidents on U.S. soil since 9/11 were not done by Muslims, but instead done by white supremacist, anti-government far-right terrorists? Did you just erase that part of the conversation from your brain? Are you choosing not to hear that? Okay, that's my point. That's why a lot of this is a testament to transphobia and like transpanic defenses not working all that well. Okay, there's like one trans person that did a school shooting, and before then and ever since then, right-wingers keep claiming that every school shooter or every shooter really that's high profile is trans, right? Over and over and over again. It is statistically marginal. Okay, it is irrelevant. The grand, if you want to group the profile of a school shooter or a mass shooter, it's almost always a white guy. Okay, with some exceptions. Having said that, however, it doesn't work when people try to say, "Oh, it's just trans people that are doing it." But that hasn't stopped right wingers from consistently claiming that it is a trans person. Okay, now the difference is, white men specifically dominate in the field of school shootings so aggressively that, and because of the way we analyze whiteness and white people in general in a, country like the United States of America, where whiteness is a socio-political framing of power, okay? A socio-political designation that is basically just saying you're a part of the in-group. People don't automatically assume racist opinions about white people. I'm a white guy. Nobody thinks I'm a school shooter. You know what I mean? It doesn't work in the same way. This is the difference between in-group, out-group dynamics. Those who retain power due to intrinsic qualities in a white supremacist society, you never monolithize those people. You have the capacity to understand that it's a complex and nuanced situation as to how they arrived at that position when it's a white person doing it. You never offer that same kind of nuance if it's a marginalized person doing it. You just go, that's how they are.
Arabia is one of the most, if not the most extremist Muslim country in the world. In the month that we've been talking about ISIS and their terrible actions in Iraq and Syria, Saudi Arabia, our closest ally, has beheaded 19 people. Nobody seems to care about that because Saudi Arabia sort of preserves our national interests.
Okay.
This is the problem, is that these kinds of conversations that we're having aren't really being had in any kind of legitimate way. We're not talking about women in the Muslim world. We're using 2 or 3 examples to justify a generalization. That's actually the definition of bigotry.
All right, fair enough. Let's listen to Benjamin Netanyahu at the United Nations today.
No way, dude. Things never change. Okay, Kaya, okay.
So when it comes to their ultimate goals, Hamas is ISIS, and ISIS is Hamas.
Guys, this is in 2014, okay? Just so you understand. This is in 2014. Oh, my Lord. This is in 2014, okay? Holy moly.
And what they share in common, all militant Islamists share in common.
So, Reza, the question at the bottom of the screen that everyone is looking at. Does Islam promote violence?
Islam doesn't promote violence or peace. Islam is just a religion, and like every religion...
Dude, look at this. Does Islam promote violence? Up next on CNN. Does every Muslim want to kill every American?
Religion in the world, it depends on what you bring to it. If you're a violent person, your Islam, your Judaism, your Christianity, your Hinduism is going to be violent. There are marauding Buddhist monks in Myanmar slaughtering women and children.
Facts.
Does Buddhism promote violence? Of course not. People are violent or peaceful, and that depends on their politics, their social world, the way that they see their communities, the way they see themselves.
So, Reza, you don't think that there's anything more... There's the justice system in Muslim countries, you don't think, is somehow more primitive or subjugates women more than in other countries?
Did you hear what you just said? You said in Muslim countries. I just told you that Indonesia, women are absolutely 100% equal to men. In Turkey, they have had more female representatives, more female heads of state in Turkey than we have in the United States.
Yes, but in Pakistan,
stop saying things like Muslim countries.
Women are still being stoned.
And that's...
Like, let me...
It's a problem for Pakistan. You're
so in
other
other words,
let's criticize Pakistan.
I just want to be clear on what your point is, because I thought you and Bill Maher were saying the same thing. Your point is that Muslim countries are not to blame. There is nothing particular, there's no common thread in Muslim countries. You can't paint with a broad brush that somehow their justice system or Sharia law or what they're doing in terms of stoning and female mutilation is different than in other countries like Western countries.
Mm-hmm. Stoning and mutilation and those barbaric practices should be condemned and criticized by everyone. The actions of individuals and societies and countries like Iran, like Pakistan, like Saudi Arabia must be condemned because they don't belong in the 21st century. But to say Muslim countries as though Pakistan and Turkey are the same, as though Indonesia and Saudi Arabia are the same, as though somehow what is happening in the most extreme forms of these repressive countries, these autocratic countries, is representative of what's happening in every other Muslim country is frankly, and I use this word seriously, stupid. So let's stop doing it.
Here's another throwback to Ben Affleck owning Sam Harris.
And about women, about homosexuals that are deeply troubling. So these are not Islamists, they're not jihadists, but they
those views are anathema to ours.
But they also keep women and homosexuals immiserated in these cultures, and we have to empower the true reformers in the Muslim world to change it. And, lying about the link between doctrine and behavior is not going to do that.
But the Great Divide. The Great Divide is not between Islam and the rest. It's rather between the fundamentalists and the moderates in each faith.
Okay, but we're misled to think that the fundamentalists are the fringe. Okay, we have jihadists, Islamists, and conservatives.
Well, and by the way,
it depends hundreds of millions of people fit that description.
You're saying that the strongest voices are coming from those who are jihadists and extremists, and that represents a bigger piece of the pie than we often think is true.
There's no question.
Okay, so having said that, and if even if that is true statistically or otherwise, the key thing to recognize that I don't think is part of the argument, but I think should be, is that there are voices that are oftentimes raised in opposition to these jihadists and to these extreme acts. But guess what? They don't get covered. They don't get exposed. And they're not given the same level of platform that we see the jihadists
One reason they don't get exposed is because they're afraid to speak out, because it's the only religion that acts like the mafia, that will fucking kill you if you say the wrong thing, draw the wrong picture, or write.
Yeah, dude. Famously, the only religion that acts like the mafia and kills you is Islam. Okay? Yeah. Brother, your refusal to understand nuance in this conversation is leading you down this illogical pathway of thinking. Okay? This is why I harbor a lot of resentment for Islamophobic r/atheist guys, the militant atheists. Okay? Not only historically have Christians done that, but they still continue to do that. What are we talking about? When Israel claims they're doing it for Judaism, they're also, I don't agree. I don't believe that they're doing it for Judaism just as much as I don't believe ISIS has anything to do with Islam. Okay? Bill Maher, on the other hand, does think that that's appropriate and good. Okay? Same with George W. Bush saying he invaded, God told him to invade Afghanistan with a ton of, very far-right Christian generals who wanted to dip their bullets in pig's blood. Okay? Do you track that as a radical Christian act? You don't. And the people that say they do are lying because they want to win that argument. Because when you live in a dominant Christian culture, you have the capacity to understand and separate fundamentalism from the acts of like the everyday average Christians. That's the difference.
Write the wrong book.
So you do have,
there's a reason why Ayaan Hirsi Ali needs bodyguards 24/7.
You do have that element of fear as well, but you also have other braver souls out there who do speak out.
Ayaan Hirsi Ali, another grifter who's now a Christian, by the way, Christian convert, Ayaan Hirsi Ali,
and who
who are risking their lives to do that.
like the Muslim clerics and others from Australia to Europe to the United States just recently publicly put their names on paper declaring their opposition to what ISIS and others are doing. So there are those voices, but where was the coverage? Where was that story to sort of create a different picture?
What is your solution? What is your answer? Just condemn Islam?
The solution, the solution is very much what
we've killed more Muslims than they've killed us by an awful lot. We've invaded more Muslims.
I am not for more killing.
An awful lot. And yet somehow we're exempted from these things because they're not really a reflection of what we believe in. We did it by accident. That's why we invaded motivated.
We're not.
Put 4 million people.
We're not convincing anybody.
It's not I'm specifically telling you that I disagree with what you think.
I know, and we're obviously not convincing anybody of you.
You don't understand my argument.
Your argument is like, black people, they show each other.
That is not my argument.
No, it's not. It's based on facts. I can show you a Pew poll of Egyptians. They are not outliers in the Muslim world that say like 90% of them believe death is the appropriate response to leaving the religion. If 90% of Brazilians thought that death was the appropriate response to leaving Catholicism, you would think it was a bigger deal.
I would think it's a big deal no matter what.
Okay, but that's the fact.
You don't. But what I wouldn't do is say it's all Brazilians, or I wouldn't say, well, Ted Bundy did this. Goddamn, these gays, they're all trying to eat each other.
Yeah, okay, let me just give you what you want. There are hundreds of millions of Muslims who are nominal Muslims, who don't take the faith seriously, who don't want to kill apostates, who are horrified by ISIS, and we need to defend these people, prop them up, and let them reform their faith.
Dude, apostates. That was a early relic. That was an early relic of the post 9/11 Islamophobia that r/atheists always love talking about. All these Muslims want to kill apostates. I think it's got to be because I think it came from the fact that like so many ex-Muslim people that became like r/atheism dipshit were wanted to like heighten their importance. So I think like they presented their worldview as like, no, every single Muslim will like immediately kill you if you leave the religion. I think that's what it is. Like, because I don't know where the this came from. And I know people will say, it's the religion, sweetie. It's like, no, that's not really like, that's not really a commonly shared opinion. Yeah, see, Turks in the chat saying that they're embarrassed, but they did that as well. A lot of r/atheists like Turks and former Muslims or people who grew up in Muslim countries that don't like Islam oftentimes play this very formative role in shaping people's understanding of it, not realizing that it like, contributes to their own personal dehumanization. Beyond Me Parks, all of them.
ISIS couldn't fill a AA ballpark in Charleston, West Virginia, and you were making a career out of ISIS.
But no, it's not just ISIS. It's all jihadists. It's global. It's a phenomenon of global jihad.
I think that's the opposite.
There is those things. There's ISIS. There's global jihadists. The question is the degree to which you're willing to say, because I've
global jihadists, dude. What a time to be alive, dude. I mean, look, this is why I sometimes say we're back, but we're not as back as we were. You know what I mean? Do you understand? Like, things are this bad, but I don't know. Aesthetically speaking, it's not this level. Like, things are bad, but it still hasn't hit this level, I think. It will get there, though, when Trump is in office.
Witness this behavior, which we all object to on the part of these people. I'm willing to...
These people are talking about takfir, which is basically excommunication, but that phrase isn't mentioned in the Quran, nor is it supported by many Islamic scholars. It's seen as an Islamic militant thing. No, dude, you don't understand. Everyone's always killing people for leaving the religion, famously.
Flatly condemn those of you I don't know and have never met.
No,
this is
not
based
condemning
on
people. It's ideas.
And,
gotta make
and people who believe in those ideas.
So it's people who believe in
based on reality, Ben. We're not making it up. That in the Muslim world, it is mainstream belief.
But this is such a caricature of Indonesia, of Malaysia,
okay, wait a minute.
Much of the world. And this does have the tinge a little bit of the way white racists talk about African Americans and define blacks by.
But what you're saying is because they are a minority, we shouldn't criticize.
They're not that much of a minority. It's the second biggest religion in the world.
Exactly, but you're treating them like a minority. I mean, if Filipinos were capturing teenagers and sending them into white slavery, we would criticize that. We wouldn't say, well, they're
criticize
Filipinos.
the people who are doing it, not the Philippines. You know what I mean?
Well, what if the people
as a Filipino kid lives down the street from you would have nothing to do with that? So these are different things. Crazy
racial
people.
Stereotyping.
I think
All right.
it goes.
Let's talk. We mentioned ISIS. Let's talk about that.
That part was great. The greatest defender of all time, Bill Maher, against his Islamophobic tendencies will forever be, I hate to give this to him because he's very different now, Glenn Greenwald. That Ben Affleck clip is great, but Glenn Greenwald on Bill Maher, if anyone has the clip, is a classic one. I used to play it all the time.
It's not our fault what came out. We didn't go into Egypt.
Well,
we wound up with the Muslim Brotherhood.
When you go into Egypt, we were supporting and propping up Mubarak for 30 years, even as we were cheering for all the Tahrir Square demonstrators as though we were on their side. It was our government that kept Mubarak in power, just like we've done across the entire Muslim world. And it's amazing for you to say that, well, look at all these Muslims, the minute you give them a little bit of freedom, they go wild and they start being all violent. How can you be a citizen of the United States, the country that has generated more violence and militarism in the world over the last 5 or 6 decades, and say, look at those people over there, they are incredibly violent? We play a significant role in what has been happening in the Middle East because we've been interfering and dominating that region in order to have access to the oil.
I wasn't talking about violence, I was talking about theocracy. That doesn't happen here.
No, well, okay, that doesn't happen here, but at the same time, Iran isn't invading lots of other countries and occupying them for a decade, nor are fundamentalist Muslim countries the way the United States is. So these things are interlinked because we are continuously interfering in that part of the world. And so to say...
Really, it's all our fault?
It's not all our fault, but when you send your military for 6 straight decades into other countries to bomb them, kill their children and women and innocent men, prop up dictators, yeah, you take responsibility for your actions and say, to the extent that that region...
That religion goes back 1,000 years before our revolution, so I don't think we can take all...
This is so unimaginably racist because Islam in its golden age literally carried water for history continuing. Islam in its golden age led to many inventions that we take for granted. Islam in its golden age is the reason why so many important academic materials were preserved. So he literally automatically, with his racist ass, white supremacist ass, Islamophobic ass, unironically just goes, oh, this is 1,000 years. Like, shut the f up, you stupid ass. Do you enjoy math? Okay, well, you know, thank the Islamic golden age. Dumb f.
All the blame.
I don't think we should. I think we should take a lot of it. And there's lots of bodies and corpses that have been piled up in the name of Christianity and Judaism as well.
Not recently.
Have you heard of the occupation of the West Bank and Gaza for the last 50 years, motivated in part by extremist views of Judaism, or the wars in Europe, or the fact that there were generals in the United States saying we have to go and invade and destroy Iraq, a country of 26 million people, because our God is bigger? Lots of religions, not just Islam, produce violence.
Well, if I could just make one quick point about Egypt.
That silly liberal view that all religions are alike because it makes you feel good.
No, it makes you feel
good. Dude. He cooked his ass so hard today, okay? And I will forever be understanding.
Good to say our side is better. Those
no,
people
it makes
over there
you
are
feel
primitive
good to
and
put
violent.
a crown on your head and say, I'm a good person. How do I prove that?
You get to ignore the responsibility that your own government has for the violence and instability in the world by saying, look, it's that primitive religion over there that's to blame.
At least there was a moment in time that I respected Glenn Greenwald. There's never been such a moment for Bill Maher. That's my point. I guess I was too young to know and appreciate his immediate takes after 9/11. So as long as I've known myself, I have despised him. His career has just been a sequence of L's downstream post that moment of moral clarity. Anyway, so yeah, people are yelling at Joe Rogan saying he's a dragon defender for a clip from 2019. How stupid. What is this?
You know, when Bush was trying to gain international support for the invasion of Iraq, he met the French president, Chirac, and well, I'll tell you how I learned about this and then tell you what the story is. Around that time, I got a letter from a Belgian theologian who sent me a disquisition that he wrote on a very obscure passage in the book of Ezekiel about Gog and Magog coming and doing terrible things to Israel. Nobody knows what it means. Are they people? Are they places? It's just a very obscure passage. But in a stream of evangelical theology, this means an evil force will come from the north, attack Israel, lead to Armageddon, then all these things happen. Well, what happened with Bush and Chirac? Bush apparently started, this is January 2003, right before the war, he went off and started talking to Chirac about Gog and Magog. Chirac didn't know what the heck he was talking about. So he asked the Élysée, the French Foreign Office, what's this guy raving about? They didn't know. So they contacted this Belgian theologian. who explained to them what it's about. I learned about this at the time, but I didn't believe a word of it, so I never wrote about it. But I did mention it to an Australian academic, a researcher, Clive Hamilton, and he looked into it, and it's true. It shows up in the French biographies of Chirac. Well, this tells us that, you know, speaking of the dangers we face, our fate is sometimes in the hands of people who are, by any rational standards, hard to believe. And it's not the only case. Actually, Reagan talked about Russia as Gog and Magog.
Well, we seem to be having a little trouble in our relations with.
What is this? Yale graduate and hedge fund manager is the new Treasury Secretary of the new working class party. Scott Bessent, a Soros protege. Anyway, the point is, I'm consistent in my analysis. Okay, I'm consistent in my analysis. I do not believe George W. Bush did. I do not believe George W. Bush invaded Iraq and Afghanistan for religious reasons. Okay, no matter what he said in private or in public. Just like I don't think that Islam is uniquely evil or uniquely bad. It's not. Religion is simply a tool for the masses to organize around, and it can be used for good or it can be used for bad. The real reason why there's so many reactionary tendencies and fundamentalist beliefs that you see in that region is because of American destabilization. That's it. American destabilization and propping up radical factions, or American destabilization and those radical factions inevitably fighting back against American destabilization, further American destabilization. That's it.